Hello and welcome to another episode of Toxic Love Transformation. I'm your host, Stephanie McPhail. And today we're going to talk about self-care. Self-care is one of those big topics that we throw around and we don't necessarily use it correctly. So before we jump into that, what I would like to do is kind of just make sure that you are following along with the direction that we're going. So for the past few weeks, we've been talking about creating community. And I actually had given all of you a homework to do. So this is the teacher checking in and making sure that you have completed your homework. Have you been able, and if this is the first you've heard, again, don't worry, you can always catch up, but have you been able to create your top 10 things that you've always been interested in trying and then gone out and tried at least one of them? So that was your homework. If you have done that, please make sure that you write in the comments and let us know what it is that you've tried. If you can't come up with 10 things that you've ever been interested in doing, start with whatever you got. So if you've got 3 or 4, then start with that. You know, this is all about rediscovering who you are. So remember, the reason why we ask you to do that is about like 3 at least different reasons why we want you to do that. Number 1, part of healing from toxic relationships is rediscovering who you are. We've been spending so much time taking care of everybody else that we get lost. So the idea is after we leave a toxic relationship, a divorce, a marriage, a breakup, relationship breakup, we want to make sure that we are focusing on learning who we are. And so we do that by going out and trying things that maybe we've put off, we haven't been able to try because of being so focused on that relationship. It also helps us build community. Again, because we lost ourselves in the relationship, we might have no friends, or the friends we have might all be married, or they might be part of your toxic, relationship group that you knew from before. They maybe don't support the best version of you. And then the third thing is really to start building that resilience so that you have that community so that when and if you do decide to start dating again, you're not needy, meaning you're not needing that relationship in order to feel happy and healthy because you already have your community. What I find a lot of times is it's very hard for our clients to really go out there and grow the way they should because they're so afraid of being alone because all they have is this relationship. So they tend to go back to people that they know aren't good because they're lonely, because they've been focused on the relationship. Their kids are older, they're by themselves, they're getting older themselves. All these other fears come up. But again, if you have that community, you're not going to fall as quickly into relationships that do not suit you because you won't stay stuck there. You'll realize, hey, I've got all these other people that really care and love about me. I know that I will find someone that's a better fit. So it starts helping your self-esteem and your self-worth. So again, if you haven't gone out and started to create that list yet of things that you would like to try, things that you'd enjoy doing, then make sure that you do that. So if you haven't done that homework, make sure you do that. If you have done the homework, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it so far. The second thing that we've been talking about over the past few weeks was instant gratification. A lot of us, when we are trying to do the work, we get frustrated because we don't see the results that we want right away. It's like going to the gym once and being like, well, I don't have a perfect body, but you only did it once. You haven't been eating healthy. You haven't been doing what you need to do. It's about that slow shift and change. The small changes over time create really big, massive results. So instead of getting into that instant gratification, start really reminding ourselves that it does take time. Now, it shouldn't take years and years. If it's taking years and years, you're probably not necessarily focusing on the right things. But, the pain and discomfort that we have of ending the relationship or ending what doesn't serve us is, instead of avoiding that, which is what we normally do, we want to feel that feeling, notice it for what it is, do what we need to do, and then move on and get the help that we need to heal. So again, we avoid pain because we are afraid and uncomfortable with the pain, but it tends to be that if we don't let it smack us in the face and deal with the pain that we have and we work through it, then the chances are good we're just going to prolong the pain and discomfort. So instead of looking for that instant gratification of, I want it to feel better tomorrow, sometimes it feels worse for a little while and then it gets better. But if we continue doing the same things we've always done in the toxicity, then we can't be surprised when we keep getting the same exact results. So those are the 2 things that I really would like you to focus on. And if you haven't been watching these trainings, make sure you go back and you watch and listen to these trainings so that you can get all the information that we've been sharing. So today, like I said in the beginning, what I would like to do is I would like to talk about prioritizing self-care. So here's a question that I have for you, and make sure that you share with us your responses. Have you ever felt like you're constantly giving? You're giving, 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 and no matter how much you give for others, it never seems to be enough. Is that anyone that is listening or watching right now? Do you feel like you are pouring from that empty cup? Because that's what we feel a lot of the times. It's like we keep giving and we're like, why am I so tired? Why do I feel so overwhelmed? Why don't I feel like anybody loves me or cares about me? There is a common feeling of guilt associated with self-care, especially for professional women, because we are so used to putting other people first because we're like, I got this. I always gave the example is that, I would always, when I was in the full toxicity, I would feel like I was on fire and drowning, and people would ask me how I was doing, and I was fine. I didn't want anyone to be bothered. I didn't want anyone to feel like I needed to be taken care of. I didn't want to ruin anybody's day with all the hard things that I was dealing with. And so when we are in this place of not letting anybody know that things aren't so great or that we need a break or whatever, we're actually hurting ourselves. And again, most people don't even know how much we're suffering because we literally don't even tell them. We don't share what we're going through out of embarrassment, out of fear of not being good enough, out of fear of being judged, and all of that stuff. So here's the thing let's break first let's break through the selflessness myth. This feeling of like, I have to give and give and give. So for society, there's this expectation, because I really think it's a societal expectation for women, is that we are taught that we need to be caregivers. We need to, take care of everybody else, put our needs on the side, and that our self-worth is really tied to how much we give. So if we are not the givers, then we are not looked at as positively as the ones who are not as much the givers. And, and again, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are on that. But we have been trained as women to be caregivers. Now, we are a bit more naturally caregivers, but it becomes like this thing that we have to be that. And if we're not that, then we're not necessarily doing right as women, and again, tell me what I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. But selflessness is not at the expense of your well-being. Not having boundaries, doing everything until you feel empty is actually not noble. Let me say that again. Being selfless to a fault so that you're giving until you're empty actually isn't noble. It's actually self-destructive. So for those of you who are giving yourself pats on the backs for giving until you feel depleted, that's actually self-destruction because there's no boundaries. Because then you keep giving and people keep taking and you don't do anything about it. And I bet you part of you gets really angry that people keep taking, but you keep giving. So we have to take responsibility for ourselves. It is self-destructive if we do not have any boundaries for ourselves. So true self-care is not selfish. It's actually essential. Abandoning yourself to serve others. So like, you're like, my boundaries don't matter. My needs don't matter. All that matters is me taking care of everybody else. All that leads to is resentment, feeling drained, and feeling lost because we lose ourselves taking care of everybody else. Again, if we don't matter, then who's going to make us a priority? And who is going to see us as mattering? If we don't think we matter, then why would anyone else think we matter? If we are constantly giving and we're not accepting any help back, well, then after a while, people stop offering help, or you're attracting people that want to take, all the takers. And who tends to be the takers? The narcissists. So we have to really start to look at that self-care and not give until we're empty. I say all the time, an empath without boundaries is a doormat. We are doormats if we allow people to keep taking and we keep giving. We are still valuable human beings if we don't give until we're empty. We have to be able to. I love taking care of other people. I'm a natural caretaker. I'm a natural person that likes to help others. But I also know that my self-care, what I need to do for myself, is the priority because I can't show up for any of you or my kids or my husband or anybody else in my life that are important to me if I don't take care of myself. So you have to think of it as kind of like that bubble, right? There's you in the middle. We take care of us, right? Then you take care of maybe your family, the people that you live with. Those might be in there. Then maybe it's your extended family. Then maybe it's work. Then maybe it's friends. What is the importance in your little circle of what are the priorities that are there? But we have to look at ourselves as right there in the middle. And so, again, most of the time we do this over giving because we want to make other people happy. We think that making everybody happy is the only way to have any self-worth. But there is a truth that the more you give without giving to yourself, the more you abandon yourself in the process. And if you're abandoning yourself in the process, then how are you making other people happy? Is it because so they're more important than you? Are other people more important than you are? And I have to remind clients this all the time. Somebody else's happiness is not more important than yours. But if you don't make yourself a priority, then that's going to be what happens. Other people are going to be a priority other than you. So your job is to make yourself and your life a priority. Okay. So the next thing that I really, and I kind of laugh because people throw around the word self-care like crazy. Like everyone talks about self-care. We need to have self-care. We know that's important. It's, blah, blah, blah. But whenever I talk to people about self-care, they're like, oh yeah, going out and having a glass of wine, having spa days, having manicures, going on a retreat. Although those are nice and they are a part of self-care, they are not the most important part. They're good to like let off the steam, but they're not really at the root of what real self-care is. And so I really want to make sure everyone understands, like, let's define what some of those things are. So let's define self-care. There's emotional self-care. Emotional self-care is making the hard decisions, setting boundaries, saying no when necessary. Yeah, saying no is self-care. Having boundaries is self-care because you can prevent all the stress and overwhelm from saying yes to everything by sometimes saying no. And that's okay. I always tell clients you want to practice the pause. If you're someone that always says yes to everything, then when somebody asks you something, hey, do you want to make cookies for the bake sale? Or hey, do you want to, go, I don't know, go somewhere on Friday? And you always say yes to everything, but then afterwards you feel resentful. Then here's the switch. Instead of saying yes right away, practice the pause. So when you would automatically say yes, instead say, I'll get back to you. It's the quickest, easiest thing to do and say. And then even if you're sure you're going to say yes later, allow yourself to practice the pause. When we are yes people, we start saying yes to things over and over again without even realizing we're just adding to our stress because we might not really, maybe we want to do it, but we just don't have the time. Or maybe we don't really want to do it, but because we're so used to people pleasing that we're afraid of saying no. And then here's the other one. If we're used to saying no to everything, maybe this is the opportunity to practice saying yes. Sometimes when we're in the healing process, we start saying yes to things we normally would say no to. So it switches up. It depends on where you're at. If you're, someone's like, hey, you want to come out with us on Friday, and you always say no, and then you're by yourself in your pajamas every Friday night. Well, maybe the answer is yes. And then you figure out how to do it. And then you can start deciding whether or not you actually like it or not. So again, sometimes that switches around. So emotional self-care is really about having those boundaries, saying no, making those hard decisions. If things aren't working right, then you do something about it right away. That is self-care because nobody else is coming around to come and save you. The next one, number 2, is mental self-care. Prioritizing your peace of mind, managing stress, and letting go of being perfect. Nobody's perfect. Oh, I know. We want to be. We're striving for perfection all the time, especially as professional women. We want everything to be perfect. But guess what? We're not. You're not going to be because you're a human being. You are not a robot. It is okay if not everything is perfect. And the more quickly we let go of that perfectionism, the more quickly we can move in the healing direction. Because healing is messy and gross. We always give the example of the butterfly that's turning, it turns into, it's in the chrysalis before it turns into the actual butterfly. It's goo. It's got to turn into goo before it can turn into that beautiful butterfly. So, realizing that before we get to that beautiful butterfly, and even in the process of being that butterfly, we've got to be a little bit gooey before we can get there. It's not going to be perfect. When you learned how to walk, you didn't do it right the first time. When you learned how to ride your bike, when you learned how to drive, all those important things, you didn't do it perfectly the first time. If you're a doctor, you did not perform surgery or do anything like that right the first time. It's good to keep trying and practicing, but you're not going to get it right away. So having that self-care, that peace of mind, and having stress, dealing with stress, because we're all going to have stress. Even as we do the work, stress is always going to come up. I wish I could say that once you do the work, we don't have stress anymore. Our stress changes and how we deal with stress changes. Where instead of it lasting weeks and weeks, maybe that stress only lasts for a few hours or maybe a few minutes. Maybe the same stress doesn't bother us anymore, but now we have different types of stress. But it's all about managing it. So of course, we always recommend making sure we're getting enough sleep, making sure we're drinking enough water, we're doing meditation, yoga, all those kinds of things. That will all help with our mental self-care. The next one is physical self-care, addressing exhaustion. Are we getting enough sleep? That's one of the biggest things with clients where it's like we have a daily accountability sheet and I ask people every single day, did you get at least 7 hours of sleep every night? And I'll have clients that will say to me, well, no, I actually do better with 5 hours of sleep. But then they have a hard time getting out of bed. And I'm like, if you do so well on 5 hours sleep, why are you having a hard time getting out of bed? Am I calling anybody out? Because we will tell ourselves all sorts of things. We lie to ourselves all the time. If you were doing so well on 5 hours sleep, then why would you be tired at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Why would you have a hard time getting out of bed? Why would you have mental lack of clarity, or would be things be fuzzy as you're trying to remember things? It's not just age. It's because you're not getting enough sleep. So physical self-care, making sure that we're getting enough sleep, listening to your body. What is your body saying? Getting your exercise in, loving this body that we're in, taking care of this body that we're in. What kind of nutrition? We want everyone to drink our green smoothies. Here you go. I've got my green smoothie that I'm going to be sipping on. In fact, get that in. The green smoothies, the getting enough sleep, the exercise, all of those things are so important. Making sure that we're taking care of our physical self-care. The key thing is that self-care is about choosing yourself every day, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. When your automatic thought is, I am selfless and everybody else matters, well, that's not going to work. Not for long term. It just won't. Because people will walk all over you and you will keep attracting toxic types of people. So one of the biggest things that we teach is making your self-care a routine that becomes your non-negotiables. I go to the gym 5 days a week. It's a non-negotiable. The only time I miss it is if I have an appointment that I have to go to, or I'm sick. There's certain things, but that is my Monday through Friday. After the kids go to school, I go to the gym. That is something that's very important to me. It helps me have clarity. It helps me with my own temper and my own stress levels. If mama doesn't go to the gym, nobody's happy. So I have to go to the gym. That's part of my routine. That is a non-negotiable for me. That is something I'm going to do my best to make sure that I am doing all the time. I'm also making sure I'm having my green smoothies. I'm also making sure that I get 7 hours of sleep. Those are some of my non-negotiables because I will show up and be the best version of me when I am doing those things. So that is my self-care. And then when is the time that you have to relax? Because you can't be going all the time. And professional women are used to going all the time. A lot of us are high achievers. I mean, we're high achievers and we've also been avoiding a lot of stuff, but that's something for another day. But we tend to overwork. We tend to overgive. We believe that pushing through our problems is going to solve them. So I'm just going to deal with it. I'm going to ignore it. And actually I just heard 2 people at the gym yesterday morning talking about how they were lifting weights and their arm was feeling tired, but one of them was like, oh, I'm going to just push through it. It's going to feel better. And the other one was like, no, dude, don't do that. It's going to get way worse. Well, think about it for things that you're doing. If you're exhausted all the time and you need a break and you're not giving it to yourself, you're going to get more sick, or you're going to get into an accident, or something else is going to happen. If you keep overextending, you're going to burn out. You can't keep struggling at that place. And if you are still in that toxicity, then here you are trying to do all these things, and then you have to deal with toxicity at home. You never have a break at all. moving forward from the toxic relationship, then it's like, I want to focus on my career and doing things, but are we ignoring things that are important? Are we taking care of the issues that we had before, or are we avoiding them and ignoring them? Are we dealing with problems when they come up, or are we avoiding talking about it because we don't want to hurt other people's feelings? We have to be careful with overextending ourselves and not standing up for ourselves. So again, if we are not taking care of ourselves, we're going to have burnout. We're going to decrease our confidence. So, if we're tired and exhausted all the time, we're not going to have as much confidence because we're just not going to be as mentally available because we're not going to have as much clarity. We're going to have more emotional numbness. We're going to disconnect from self. If we're disconnected from our emotions, then we're not going to be able to make the right decisions for ourselves. It's okay to have all the emotions that we have. The emotions are trying to tell us something. So we don't want to disconnect from our emotions, and we don't want to disconnect from self. You can't solve everybody else's problems without solving your own first. And you can't solve everybody else's problems when they don't want their problems to be solved. Yeah, I said it. We get so focusing on everybody else's problems that we forget that we need to focus on our own, because not everybody wants to work on themselves. And you realize that as hard as it is to take care of yourself and self-care and make the changes and have the healing and growth and all that kind of stuff, it's so hard to do it on your own, let alone try to do it to someone who doesn't even want it to be done. They don't want to focus on the work on themselves. Not everybody is ready to heal and grow, and that's okay. So that's why making yourself a priority, because you know what you want and what you need for yourself. And if you're not sure what you need for yourself, that's where we make sure that we get people on our team to help us really focus on what we do need for ourselves, because sometimes it gets a little foggy out there. High achieving women have been trained to push through problems. But the truth is that the longer that you fight for others without fighting for yourself, the more you abandon yourself and your well-being. You got to make yourself. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is not cold to put yourself first. Healthy selfishness is not about hurting other people. It's about showing up as your best self. You can't give your best if you're not whole, if you're not rested, if you're not taken care of, if you're around people that are constantly taking from you. Self-care actually empowers you to be more present and effective in your relationships and your career. If you can constantly check in with yourself and see where you're at, you have a better chance of doing better in your career. I mean, imagine if you were like, you had that self-worth, you felt good about yourself. Do you think you're going to show up better in your career? Do you think you're going to make more money? Do you think you're going to level up in your career? Yeah, because people can feel that self-confidence. They can feel when you're struggling, when you're worried about taking care of everybody else. And you're going to spread yourself pretty thin if you're taking care of everybody else and not yourself. And you're not going to do your best job by taking care of everybody else. So you have to focus on you. If you're being selfish in the right way, it's actually the most selfless thing you can do. Yeah, I know. And that's not what we've been taught, right? Self-care and, being selfish is so terrible. But it's not. It's the best thing you can do for yourself and other people. Like I said in the example before, if I don't go to the gym, nobody's happy. That's my way of getting my stress out. I feel much better. I am much more, assertive. I am much more focused. I have so much more clarity. I drink more water during the day. I'm better at eating healthier food. I feel better inside my skin. I like more how I look. All of those things all together help me be a better version of myself. And if I can be a better version of myself for me, then I'm going to also show up in a totally better way for my children, for my clients, for my relationships. So the more that you are taking care of yourself, that actually it's really selfless. It's good for everyone for you to take care of you. So give an example. We had a client of ours named Rachel. She's a high achiever. She's got her PhD in nursing. And she was not taking care of herself at all. She was focused on everybody else. She was feeling isolated and really overwhelmed. And she was really hyper-focused on this past relationship who had turned abusive, definitely verbally abusive. I don't think he had become physical with her yet, although it was kind of going in that direction. And she's always someone that just, nurses, doctors, they're natural caretakers, caregivers. And so what she realized is that the therapy she had done was not helping her with that. And she had done it for years. Even before this past relationship, she self-admitted she had never been in a healthy relationship to begin with. So she had to learn, like, one of the things that we worked on with her was learn how to set boundaries. That was something that was really important for her. So like a lot of us in our 30s, 40s, 50s, we're just learning how to set boundaries. And again, boundaries are for ourselves, not for other people. Boundaries are, what do you want for your life? How do you expect to be treated? What is your expectation for yourself? If it's not cool for you to be yelled and screamed at, then what do you do when that happens? That's a boundary. If somebody is constantly standing you up and not showing up, what do you do about that? That's your boundary. How many chances do you give to the person? And then what do you do after that? It's okay to have those feelings and to know those answers for you. It's not about continually explaining and trying to teach the other person over and over again. You need to have your boundaries. So to go back to Rachel, she had to learn those. Then she had to make sure that she prioritized self-care. She started running more. Now she runs all the time, drinking her green smoothies, having her water, getting enough sleep, doing yoga, doing meditation, all those great things. And then after actually setting those healthy boundaries, focusing on her own needs, she actually found that she was able to more easily end this relationship with her ex, where she was not as hyper-focused on him. She was focused on herself and her son. And then she was able to find more peace and confidence and love. And then as time went on, because she was more focused on herself and her healing and what she needed, what was right for her, she ended up meeting a great man and has now been happily married for the past year and a half, 2 years. For the past 2 years, she's been happily married. But she had to first focus on her and her needs and what she wanted, because she was overgiving. And that when you overgive without boundaries, you're going to be attracting the takers that tend to be the toxic people. She actually said she never could have imagined how much easier life could be once she did the work. So, again, we talked at the beginning, that avoidance that we have, we're avoiding that discomfort that we have. Once she realized she had to stop avoiding and actually did the work to heal on herself, she saw that she'd been struggling for so long. And now she was in such a life-changing place for her, because now she had that confidence that she didn't have before. So let's not avoid the self-care. Let's not avoid taking care of ourselves. Let's not avoid doing the work. Let's make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and making ourselves a priority. So what are the steps to prioritizing self-care? And this might be something you want to write down, definitely worth it. Number one is you want to shift your mindset. Recognize that self-care is a priority, not an afterthought. Like I said before, for me, going to the gym Monday through Friday, that is a priority. It's not at some point in the day, I'm going to go to the gym. It's the thing that I do after the kids get on the school bus every day, Monday through Friday. What are your self-care things that are priorities for you that you need to make a priority that maybe you haven't? Challenge your limiting beliefs about being selfish and having guilt about it. Ask yourself, is it really selfish to have boundaries, to take care of myself? Step number 2, have boundaries. Define clear emotional, mental, and physical boundaries. Learn to say no without feeling guilty. And it'll take a little bit of practice, but as you keep practicing saying no when you need to, you actually realize how much better you feel. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can say no. This is great. This is wonderful. And look at the places you can say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. Step 3, schedule non-negotiable self-care. Commit to the regular self-care activities, whether it's journaling, meditation, exercise, therapy, coaching, whatever it is that you need. What are the non-negotiable self-care items that is not a conversation? These are the things that have to happen for you in order to heal and feel better. Number 4, build a support system. This is what we talked in the very beginning, having that support system that's on your side. Surround yourself with people who support you and your self-care journey and won't guilt trip you for taking time for yourself. My first husband liked that I exercised every day. That's always been something that was really important to me. And then once we got married, he said he didn't want me to exercise after work because he wanted me to be home and make dinner for him. So then when I stopped exercising as much, I started gaining weight. And then he was upset that I was gaining weight. And then he had comments to say about that. That is not someone who is supporting you. For my now marriage, my husband, David, he wouldn't even think. In fact, I think there was a day last week where I was like, oh, we got a lot of stuff to do for work. Maybe I'll take today off from the gym. And he said, nah, you're not going to be as clear if you don't. You're going to be much more clarity, much more on if you go. I know we've got a lot of stuff to do, but you should just go. That's someone who's supportive. That's someone who's going to support you doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And then number 5, track your progress. Regularly reflect on your emotional well-being and make adjustments to your self-care plan. If your plan is go to the gym 5 days a week, first thing in the morning, and that doesn't work for you because you're not a morning person and you're not going to be a morning person, then maybe you need to bring your gym clothes to the gym and do that after you work. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe an hour and a half of a workout like you did in your 20s is not going to work for you now. 30 minutes maybe is all you can do. That's okay. But being able to look and then change wherever you need to in order to make it effective for you to continue your self-care routine. Being able to, and whatever that self-care is, like we talked about, it's not just the spa days and manicures. It's being able to say no and do all that. Have you been saying no? Have you been making yourself a priority? And if you suddenly notice that you're starting to slide, what are you going to do to try to get back there? To truly give your best to the people you care about, you need to take care of yourself first. I mean, that hands down is the biggest thing I hope you come away with us from. You don't earn your worth by being everything to everyone. You get to be you, and you taking care of you is important. You don't have to make everybody else happy in order to be worthy. So, final reminder, self-care is not an option. It's a necessity for professional women who want to thrive after toxic relationships and thrive throughout their lives. This is something that needs to become part of your regular routine all the time, is your self-care. So if you are having trouble with your self-care routine and you're looking for help, just make sure you seek help. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I need to do. Seek help just like Rachel did and learn how to prioritize yourself and break free from those old patterns. And of course, if you want to reach out to us and get our support, you can always send me a text message at 631-317-4027. Or you can go to Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, Being Loved with a D, shouldn't hurt.com/links. And you can set up a time to chat with us and we can talk about how we can help you. Listen, self-care is about rediscovering yourself, reclaiming your power, and showing up fully for the life you deserve. And you don't have to do it by yourself. This is one of those things, if we thought that we were going to do brain surgery without an education on how to do it, people would look at us like we were crazy. But here we are trying to do things that we've never done before or never done maybe well because we've been successful in other areas, but not with relationships. And then we get mad at ourselves for not doing it right. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to figure it out. So let us guide you on your journey. Let us help you figure all of it out so that you don't have to keep trying to guess of what you need to do. So I hope that was helpful for everybody. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to send me a private message. Make sure that you are following along. We meet every single Thursday sharing tips and tools to help you heal from toxic relationships, whether you are still in it and like ready to leave because you're done and you're like, this shit is nuts and I don't want to deal with it anymore. If you're there, or you've already left and you're like, okay, I thought that I would just be okay, but now I don't know who I am, what I want, what I need for myself, and I feel really lost. You're in either one of those places. This is the place to be. You want to make sure that you are following these weekly trainings. You are following all of the resources that I share. And if you are looking for that extra support, you are reaching out to me or to David to set up a time for us to chat so we can come up with a plan for you. So on that note, I hope that was really helpful for everybody. Always love spending time with all of you. Again, if you have any questions, make sure that you reach out and ask any questions. But if there's nothing else to ask, then as always, love spending time with you. I said that already. But have a wonderful evening and I will see you on the next episode. Never forget, you are way stronger than you realize.